Okay, geometry, welcome to October 29th, or day 3 of quarantine. Yay! Okay, so let's do this. So here's your essential question about work for today. So we're going to be going over the distance formula today. Now, technically, it's something that you should have been exposed to, both in algebra as well as previously in Edgenuity. So I want you to do your best on this to figure out how far away the points 0, 0, and 3, 4 are. But I don't expect perfection. I don't even expect the right answer. I just want you to try so that when we start talking about the distance formula today, that you're kind of in the best mindset to get that done. So if the sub can go ahead, hit pause, let them work on this for, let's give them 3 minutes, 4 minutes, and then we'll launch into it. There really aren't notes today. We're going to be working through the actual use of the distance formula and the midpoint formula. So everyone needs to make sure that they have that worksheet in front of them. So we have the distance formula and the midpoint formula. So both of these require 2 points to work with. And those 2 points are, we refer to them as x1, x2, x1, y1, and x2, y2. Now, those numbers on the bottom, that 1 and the 2, those are called subscripts. Sub, like submarine, underneath, and script, just writing. So you're writing something underneath. It's called a subscript. So those are just identification pieces. It means the x value of our first point, the y value of our first point, the x value of our second point, and the y value of our second point. So we get the distance formula. Distance is the square root of x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. To get the midpoint formula, so distance is a single number. It's how far away something is. Midpoint is another point on the graph or another point with whatever you're working on. So that's actually going to have an x component and a y component. So that's why if you see there I have x sub m and y sub m, that's x with the m underneath and the y with the m underneath. So just like x1, y1 was the x of our first point and the y of our first point, xm, ym is going to be the x of our middle point and the y of our middle point. And how we find those, the x value is found by taking the average of the other x's, x1 plus x2 divided by 2. And the y value the same, but with the y's, y1 plus y2 divided by 2. So, nothing to it but to do it. Find the distance between each pair of points. Round your answer to the nearest tenth if necessary. It's probably going to be necessary, so I want you to get a calculator. The calculator's in the back cabinet. If you're not using your own calculator, use the one in the back cabinet. Make sure you wipe it down with a wipe when you're done with it, please. There's the spider crawling on my hand, and I have no clue where it went. Oh, well. So, we already have the distance formula down. So what I do on each of these problems, first thing I do is label them x1, y1, x2, y2. So now that I have my x points and my y labeled, Ramen, knock it off. I can just plug them directly into that formula. So, square root of y, so x2 minus x1, 5 minus a negative 2 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared, negative 3 minus a negative 4 squared. So 5 minus a minus 2 is 5 plus 2, or 7 squared. Negative 3 minus a negative 4 is negative 3 plus 4, or 1 squared. 7 squared is 49. 1 squared is 1. So the distance between these two is the square root of 50. Plug that into a calculator, and we get 7.1. And that's really all there is to it. Make sure you are rounding to the nearest tenth, because I actually think when you plug this into a calculator, it's like 7.06. So you round it up to 7.1. Let's do another one. Number 2. Label x1, y1, x2, y2. Distance equals, just so you know, and I'm not going to take the time to do it right now, but I will once I'm back in the class. It doesn't matter which one you pick as 1 and which one you pick as 2. I like to go the first one to show up as 1, the second one to show up as 2, but even if you switch them, you're going to get the exact same answer. So the distance between these two, we're going to go negative 3. It's actually minus 6. Negative 3 minus 6 squared plus 4 minus a negative 8 squared. That gives us negative 9, negative 3 minus 6 squared, plus 4 plus 8 is 12 squared. That gives us a square root of 81 plus 144, or the square root of 215, which is, when you plug it into a calculator, 15. Or you can actually look up on the wall on both sides of the classroom, left and your right. There's a chart with squares and cubes on it. And as you can see, 15 squared is 215. So look at number 6. Number 6 has a graph. So what we need to do is to find x1 and y1, we need to find the ordered pairs. So hopefully you guys remember how to do this. Any ordered pair is the x first and the y. So what we do, our first point is negative 4, negative 5. Well, how do we get that? Well, we start here, this point right here in the middle. That's our origin. That's where everything starts from. That's 0, 0. And so first, as you can see, is our x. So we go, to get to this point right there, this one, we need to go 1, 2, 3, 4 backwards. So that's negative 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Negative 5. So this is plus, this is minus, this is plus, this is minus. So left, right, right is plus, left is minus, up, down, up is positive, down is negative. So when we repeat that with the other one, we go over 2, up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it gives us the point 2, 5. We then label, so those are our 2 points, negative 4, negative 5, and 2, 5. We'll label those x1, y1, x2, y2. And since we're looking for distance, we just plug them into the distance formula. Negative 4 minus 2 squared plus negative 5 minus 5 squared. Negative 4 minus 2 is going to give us negative 6 squared. Negative 5 minus 5 is negative 10 squared. Negative 6 squared is 36. Negative 10 squared is 100. So it gives us the square root of 136. Plug that into a calculator, and we get 11.7. Midpoint. So again, we're going to be wanting to label them x1, y1, x2, y2, and then plugging them into the midpoint formula. That's why I gave you both the distance formula and the midpoint formula yesterday as well as today. So make sure you have your midpoint formula handy, and let's go. So we label them x1, y1, x2, y2, and then we plug it into the formula. So remember the x is x1 plus x2 divided by 2. And the y, so that's negative 10 plus 3 over 2, or negative 7 over 2, or negative 3.5. Either one of those last two is fine. You can do it as negative 7 over 2 or negative 3.5. We then have negative 2 plus negative 6. And that's going to give us negative 8 over 2 or negative 4. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the midpoint. So that's halfway between those 2 points. And so if you ever are curious as to whether or not that works, what I would suggest is, you can sketch a little graph. Negative 10, negative 2 would be around here. 3, negative 6 would be around here. Connect those two. Negative 3.5, negative 4. Yeah, that looks like right around the mid place. So feel free to go ahead and just kind of eyeball it. If you're not sure whether or not your math is working, just quick sketch out a graph. And if the graph looks like your answer is legitimate, then you're good. And you're at least in the neighborhood. If you drew that line and somehow your answer was out here, you're like, hey, listen, I must have done something wrong, and it's time to go back and double check your problem. Number 12, again, what we want to do is we want to label them x1, y1, x2, y2, and then plug it into the formula. Negative 8 plus negative 4 over 2, and negative 2 plus negative 2 over 2. Negative 8 plus negative 4 is negative 12 divided by 2. Negative 2 plus negative 2 is negative 4 divided by 2. So this gives us a negative 6 and a negative 2. So if we have a graph, it's really just one extra step. It's identifying the coordinates of the endpoint and then basically doing the exact same thing that we just did. So negative 3, 2, and 4, 2. How did I figure those out? I went first on the x-axis and then on the y-axis. Remember, left is negative, right is positive, down is negative, and up is positive. So now that we have those, we're going to label them x1, y1, x2, y2. I like to go left to right. You can do it however you want, but just make sure, you can't do it however you want. But make sure that your points are labeled, and then go ahead, plug them into the formula. So we have 4 plus negative 3, that's x1 plus, or x2 plus x1 over 2. And 2 plus 2 over 2 is my y1 plus y2 over 2. 4 plus negative 3 is negative 1 over 2. and 2 plus 2 is 4 over 2. So we have negative 0.5 and 2. And that's your answer. So if we were to go, and that would be like the point would be kind of right there. And that makes sense. When I look at it, it's not a negative. I don't know why I put a negative. 4 minus 3 is 1. 2 plus 2 is 4. So that gives us 0.52 as our answer. Next one, we want to identify the points. So this is negative 4 and negative 5, and 4 and negative 2. x1, y1, x2, y2. Again, I like to label them left to right. And then we go ahead and plug them in. 4 plus negative 4 over 2. And negative 5 plus negative 2 over 2. 4 plus negative 4 is 0. 0 divided by 2 is just 0. So once we have that 0 there, we can just leave it. Negative 5 plus negative 2 is negative 7 over 2. And we get 0, negative 3.5. So we have 4 plus negative 4 over 2. And no. And then we have our, I'm not sure what just happened. And then we have negative 5 plus negative 2 over 2. So the negative 4 plus negative 4, that's 0 over 2. And then we have negative 7 over 2. And that's fine. You can leave it like that, or you can put it as 0 and negative 3.5. Okay. So you guys should be good to go. If you have any problems, I mean, kind of rewind, fast forward. I'll be doing the other problems on here. So you can just rewind or fast forward to the point that you need help with that problem. And that'll be it. So number 18, identify your points, 2, 5, 3, negative 1, x1, y1, x2, y2. Plug it into the formula. So that would be 3 plus 2 divided by 2. And 5 plus negative 1 divided by 2. So we have 5 over 2. And 4 over 2. So our answer would be 2.5, 2.5 over 2. And again, when we look at the graph, that makes sense that is our midpoint. While we're here, let's just do 19. So we have negative 5, 4. And 1, negative 5. It's my x1, y1, my x2, y2. So we have negative 5 plus 1 over 2. 4 plus negative 5 over 2. Negative 5 plus 1 is negative 4 over 2. 4 plus negative 5 is negative 1 over 2. Whoa. over 2. So that's going to give us negative 2, negative 0.5 as our midpoint. And again, if we look at the graph, that makes sense. So this paused, I had to restart it, so hopefully I'm not covering old ground. Anyway, number 3, x1, y1, x2, y2, plug them into the distance formula. So we have negative 7 minus 3 squared plus negative 5 minus a negative 2 squared. Negative 7 minus 3 is negative 10 squared. Negative 5 minus a negative 2 turns into negative 5 plus 2, or negative 3 squared. That gives us the square root of 100 plus 9, square root of 109, 10.4. Number 4, again, x1, y1, x2, y2, plug it in. 3 minus a negative 2 squared plus negative 7 minus a negative 5 squared. That turns into 5 squared plus negative 2 squared, or the square root of 25 plus 4, the square root of 29, which equals, when rounded to the nearest tenth, 5.4. Okay, so that should do it. I guess I'll do number 5 has a 0 in it. So we'll go ahead and work that one together. x1, y1, x2, y2. The appearance of the 0 does absolutely nothing. We have the square root of x2 minus x1, 6 minus a negative 2 squared, plus y2 minus y1, 0 minus 4 squared. 6 minus a negative 2 is 8 squared, plus negative 4 squared. That gives us 64 plus 16, or the square root of 80, which when rounded to the nearest tenth is 8.9. When we look at distance, so let's look at I don't remember whether I did 12 or not. I did do 12. So let's look at 13. I'm going to go x1, y1, x2, y2. So that's going to give us x1, negative 9 plus 4 over 2. And y1 plus y2 over 2. Negative 2 minus 1 over 2. Sorry. Negative 2 plus a negative 1. I want to make sure that we're keeping everything real clear. Negative 9 plus 4 is negative 5 over 2. Negative 2 plus negative 1 is negative 3 over 2. And if you want, that's fine. If you want to break it down to negative 2.5, negative 1.5, that's fine as well. Number 14, again, we want to label x1, y1, x2, y2. When we plug that into the formula, we get negative 4 plus negative 3 over 2. And then negative 7 plus 10 over 2. So that gives us negative 7 over 2. And 3 over 2. It's going to give us negative 3.5 and 1.5. And again, can you get him water, please, sweetie? Again, if you're not sure whether that works, negative 4, negative 7, negative 3, 10. You quick sketch it, and we have negative 3.5, 1.5, somewhere right around. And that makes sense. So if you just want to kind of sketch it out, eyeball it, make sure everything works, good to go. And that's basically it. We've done the other ones. If you have any questions, feel free to email me or call me. The sub has my number, and we'll go from there. Thank you all for all your hard work. Can't wait to see you guys again.